Cup. All of us are new to this. A warm welcome to all of you on this second. It requires no introduction. He's regarded as one of the points of the Goan bar. His contribution to the Goan bar through his practicing career, close to 5 decades, has not only been significant but exemplary. He remains as a guide and a mentor to all of us. So, without further ado, I warmly welcome Senior Advocate Sri S.G. Desai to give us this lecture and enlighten us on this very pertinent topic, which is criminal law jurisdictional imbroglio. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Amay.
Sir, before I hand over the platform to you, I request all participants to kindly mute your audio if not already done, and also close your video so that the streaming quality is better. Thank you so much. So, over to you.
Thank you, Amay. So thanks a lot, Nikhil. A big pat on the back of Shivan and all other organizers. Good evening, dear listeners, who are my friends who have gathered to hear me. I have chosen a little difficult caption, jurisdictional imbroglio. The two words, the first arises from Latin, the second originally Latin, but it is vulgar Latin, and thereafter it is Italian. So the caption itself creates a confusion, and I want to resolve this confusion, which is found in many courts in India, which is created by letter legislations unnecessarily, and which has multiplied unnecessary litigation, which should not have been originated at all, according to me. For example, I will tell you, turn to the MMRD Act. MMRD Act 1957 started sometime after 1957. And in that there is section 4 which says that if you, without obtaining a license, prospect or transport ore, and there is section 41A which says that if you carry on mining without a mining lease, you are liable to incur penalty. Then comes section 21, says that the penalty will be to the extent of 5 years and 5 lakh rupees. And more so, section 22 of the Act lays down that the cognizance of violation of section 21 shall be taken by a competent court upon a complaint filed by an authorized officer authorized under the MMRD Act. Now the question and the embryo that arises is, can a police officer entertain information under section 154 CRPC, and can he initiate proceedings without following the principles of law laid down under section 22, and can a court on the basis of the FIR and the investigation by the police take cognizance of an offence under section 21 of the MMRD Act? According to me, the answer is a big no, because the law itself prescribes that cognizance will be taken by the special court, because special court has been created under section 13A and B, more particularly section 13A of the Act, provided the authorized officer authorized under section 22 or for the purpose files a complaint to the competent court. Now the complaint cannot be an information in terms of section 154 CRPC. Complaint means, in terms of section 2C, if I remember well, complaint 2C of CRPC. Complaint means a complaint in writing to the magistrate. If that is so, the whole concept of MMRD Act lays down that if somebody is required to be proceeded against under section 21, the authorized officer empowered under the Act shall directly approach the magistrate, and such magistrate either hold an inquiry, and if there are other offences connected, that is entirely a separate issue, but the magistrate can take cognizance under section 190 CRPC, can hold an inquiry under 200 CRPC, can order investigation under section 202 CRPC, and if he is satisfied, can order issue of process under 204 CRPC. If that is so, how can a police officer treat a complaint in terms of 22, which is supposed to be directly filed to the magistrate, as a piece of information for the purpose of section 154? And how can he file a charge sheet before the magistrate or before the special court? And what happens to such a charge sheet which is impermissible in law, which cannot be filed in terms of law as provided under the MMRD Act? Supposing such a thing happens and the proceedings are initiated before the special court. Now there are various other sections which are also tagged together, such as relevant sections under Prevention of Corruption Act, maybe connected sections under the IPC, and so on. Now if a magistrate or a special court trying a case under MMRD Act is asked to try other offences which normally he would not have jurisdiction, then how does he have jurisdiction to try the other offences? And supposing what happens, he says that the information under section 154 CRPC is the complaint under section 190 CRPC, which can't be done, and on the basis of that he cannot initiate proceedings. Therefore this imbroglio has to be sorted out. It has already been sorted out, but the legislators have complicated the issue. About 200 years ago, we started with the Indian Penal Code, 1860. Then we started with CRPC. Then we started with Evidence Act. Now these three statutes cover the entire world. World in the sense, specifically they are in India now, we speak about India. Cover the entire India of any offence. If you go to IPC, it starts from fine to simple imprisonment, to small imprisonments, to 10-year imprisonment, to life imprisonment, and even to death. CRPC has provided when and who can give a sentence of death, who can give a sentence of life imprisonment, who can give sentence of 10 years, who can give sentence of 7 years, who can give sentence of 3 years. When the law as settled nearly 2 years ago is so clear about trial of offence, criminal offences by a competent court, why is there any necessity to constitute special courts to create special confusion? And who is harassed in all these cases? The person who litigates, who is an accused, has to run from the pillar to the post. There is no judgment, according to me, which has considered the implication and the cognizance in terms of law, MMRD Act, as spelled out under section 22. And the courts have been taking cognizance of offences under MMRD Act on the basis of the police report filed under section 173 CRPC and on the basis of the investigation carried out by the concerned police officer pursuant to the information received by him under section 154 CRPC, treated as a complaint. The complaint in terms of law is a complaint to the magistrate directly. Information under 154 is not a complaint within the meaning of law. So therefore, how can 154 information be treated as a complaint under section 22? Now this lacuna has not been understood by many of us. The courts have glossed over this. Without touching this, the courts have held that yes, it is possible for a magistrate to try an offence under section 22 or 21 as well as the offences under IPC without considering whether section 21 provision cognizance has been taken in terms of section 22 of the MMRD Act. So all these inconveniences have been just ignored, and on the basis of that the things are going on. Now, we did not have any need to create special courts. The courts which are already existing, the judicial magistrates which have already been appointed and empowered, they would have tried in terms of the provisions of CRPC all these offences which are also under MMRD or under any other special act or even under Prevention of Corruption Act, if they were to be rooted in terms of CRPC. Section 4 of CRPC lays down that all offences under IPC will be investigated, tried in terms of the relevant provisions of CRPC by the courts as specified under CRPC for the purpose, and a judgment will be delivered by the competent court. Section 4 of CRPC further lays down if there is an offence under any other law, that also will be tried by following the procedure prescribed by CRPC. Of course, however, subject to any other special law making a special provision, making a special procedure in which event such special procedure will apply. The question is there any need to have any other special procedure when CRPC caters to every offence either existing or to be made in future, and a real procedure, a regular procedure with regular criminal courts? Therefore, this confusion was not at all necessary, and all these provisions are half-hearted. The provisions have not understood whether this situation will arise, and they have not taken. Now, for example, you see, under Section 4 of Prevention of Corruption Act, if I remember well, Section 4, subsection 4 of Section 4 lays down that a special court appointed under Section 3 of this Prevention of Corruption Act shall also be entitled to try offences which have been forwarded to the special court or committed or purported to have been committed under any other law. Now, such a provision is not there under the MMRD Act. Such a provision is not there in some of the new laws which have created special courts. In the absence of such a provision, is it permissible under the law for such a special court, when such a power is not specifically conferred, to just go on entertaining, trying and imposing sentences in cases which are made over to them or which are before them? Is such conviction valid in terms of law? This minute sequence, according to me, has not been considered by the courts, possibly in order to see that this confusion will create further confusion. Now, confusion has to be removed. In order to see that the confusion continues, we cannot just gloss over the thing and say that we will not tackle it. According to me, this has happened in most of the cases which have held that MMRD Act also can be invoked in a matter along with other IPC offences, and it can be tried. Forgetting what is the procedure prescribed under MMRD Act or the procedure prescribed under CRPC is in consonance with what is provided in the substantive provisions of the MMRD Act. I have come across another case recently. There was a person who was being charged under MMRD Act for some mining offence, and he filed an anticipatory bail application to the special judge for seeking anticipatory bail, his anticipatory bail. The special judge said that he is not a regular session judge in terms of section 438 CRPC. Therefore, he cannot entertain, and he should go and seek appropriate relief before the specified forum. Now, specified forum in terms of section 438 is the relevant session judge who has been conferred specific powers under 438 in terms of 438. Now, if the matter went to the session judge under 438, it is open for him to say that there is a special court appointed which is supposed to have all the powers, therefore you go to the special court. In which event, how does a person who is otherwise entitled to anticipatory bail will be able to avail this? So these are the situations which create confusion, and this legal confusion has to be sorted out either by the Supreme Court or by High Court in proper perspective, considering the inconvenience caused to a litigant. We cannot just decide a case on the basis of the facts and get out of it. We must decide the law properly so that it is made available to a litigant in a proper perspective. Now, you see Article 20 of the Constitution of India. Everyone knows that Constitution of India is the mother of all laws. Therefore, all laws have to obey the relevant provisions of the Constitution. Article 20 of the Constitution says that you will be punished by the law which is for the time being in force, which creates an offence of the acts alleged against you. Clause 2 of Article 20 also postulates that you will not be charged for the same offence twice, and the expression used there is prosecuted or convicted. Now the question is, we can forget 21 says that you will be, Article 21 lays down that you will be, your life and liberty will be taken away after following the procedure prescribed by law. Therefore, we take Article 20 and 21 together. Then a litigant would be entitled to the procedure which he is entitled in terms of law, as focused by the Constitution and as reflected in the other enactments which are of general nature, which do not specify. Now the question that would arise normally in the mind of a judge or in the mind of a litigant or in the mind of a lawyer is, if there is an offence committed under MMRD Act, for example, if some mining offence is committed, somebody has extracted ore from a mine without obtaining a mining lease, or has started prospecting a mine without obtaining a prospecting license from the competent authority under the Act. Now that constitutes an offence in terms of section 21, and one has to start with that offence investigation in terms of section 22. Now this is an offence by itself in terms of Article 21. Now it is possible to say that since you have extracted ore, you have also committed theft. But if the offence is covered, if you extract means even if you commit theft, the commission of theft is also contemplated under section 4 or 41A of the MMRD Act. So where is the question arising under section 379 or 378 of the IPC? Can you charge him with the offence of having committed theft. A person who has disobeyed the mining law and extracted ore from a mine. How does he could be charged with theft or all other things? As it happens, especially in Goa, a person is charged, a mine owner or a licensee or leasee as you call it, is charged with several independent offences under IPC, under Prevention of Corruption Act, merely because he has violated essentially and substantially the provisions of the MMRD Act 1957. If clause 2 of Article 20 says that if there is an offence already under one act, you cannot separately prosecute the person second time, then can somebody can an investigating authority carve an offence out of the results which have been created after committing the offence, which are also included? If somebody doesn't obtain a license, mining lease, and extracts ore from a mine, the punishment is there. He is supposed to go for 5 years and he is supposed to pay 5 lakhs. So that means he has the section 21 of the MMRD Act contemplates also that theft has been committed by the person who has violated the provisions of MMRD Act. Therefore, there is no question of he being prosecuted for theft because his offence or whatever he has done is already covered by section 21 of the MMRD Act. And if the Constitution says you cannot be prosecuted for the same offence twice over, then how do you create a second offence and start prosecuting people? Are they not harassed? Is the litigant not harassed? Is the accused not harassed? So we have to do something. We have to administer justice in order to facilitate the cause of justice. We cannot administer justice for the sake of administering justice. We must see that justice is administered in real sense, honestly, fearlessly, independently, without favor. But there must be an anxiety to see that justice is properly administered, which is not happening in most of the courts. Now, there is controversy which has been sought on anticipatory bail before a special court under the MMRD Act is growing all over India. There is a full bench decision of the Patna High Court saying that yes, the special judge under MMRD Act can exercise jurisdiction under section 438. There is another bench in Karnataka decided on the same line. But Kerala High Court says no, it is wrong. Interpreting correctly section 30B of the MMRD Act with reference to section 438 of CRPC. Now this complexity or this imbroglio, how to solve it? Is it not incumbent upon the judges to solve disputes permanently, once for all, on a regular basis, than just to decide a case and get out of it? Look at the sequence. The Patna High Court says yes, the special court has power to do it, power to entertain an anticipatory bail application. Some other high courts, another 2 or 3 high courts, have said no, there is no such power, because the power is conferred under 438 on a regular session judge in terms of classification of criminal courts as earmarked under CRPC. Now, the matter has to be resolved by the Supreme Court in order to lay down the law. in furtherance of Article 141 of the Constitution of India. But what happens until then? What happens until the time the matter is not resolved? Is it not open to a judge who is considering a case to understand the law properly and apply it effectively? The judges should not be just obsessed by decisions. How they have been taken, that has to be understood. Why they have been taken, that has to be understood. And if possible decisions which would create injustice will have to be avoided by differentiating or differing from them, which is not happening. Now, another issue which I wanted to pick up is about the IPC being the criminal book providing for all offences that a man can ever commit. As we all know, there was a time when there was no rule of law. There was a doctrine of eye for eye, tooth for tooth, or soul for soul. Then came, about 200 years ago, some sort of a rule of law from the time of Manu. And thereafter we had the Indian Penal Code, the CRPC, and the Evidence Act. All these three acts, enactments taken together, provide complete solution for any offence which can be committed by a person. Even if there could be said that certain eventualities are not contemplated, it is possible to make a new enactment and declare a particular act, illegal act, as an offence. That has been done in terms of various laws which came to the fore after those three enactments were first made, and in terms of the intellectual dishonesty being shown by people from how to do things which are not normally considered as offences. Now, therefore, if CRPC provides for a correct procedure for all offences, and if IPC provides hello, I got cut off. Some technical defect. I don't know. Just to elaborate.
So we can hear you.
Yeah. Just to elaborate on Article 20. Article 20 says no person shall be convicted of any offence except for violation of a law in force at the time of the commission of the act charged as an offence, nor be subjected to penalty greater than that which might have been inflicted under the law in force at the time of commission of the offence. No person shall be prosecuted and punished for the same offence more than once. See, no person shall be prosecuted and punished for the same offence more than once. No person accused, the third clause 3 may not be important here. So what I was trying to emphasize is, if a person cannot be charged with the same offence second time, or even cannot be prosecuted, is it permissible to have different pinning for the same offence and create offences after the offence, main offence, which would include all these offences, has been committed and with which the person has been charged? Article 21 speaks about the procedure. Now, another point which I wanted to pick up is, which again creates some sort of an ambiguity, is if a person is entitled to discharge in terms of the Criminal Procedure Code, a person is entitled to be discharged while the charges were being framed against him, and when he was able to point out to the concerned court that he had not committed the offence. Now, question is, if a special court tries offences not empowered to be entertained by a special court, because special courts are constituted for special purposes in order to entertain, try and punish in respect of special offences for which they are created, can such special courts act like general courts, general criminal courts, and try to entertain offences or convict the wholesale murder arrangement? I may just tell you how the criminal courts are classified in the CRPC. Under CRPC, the High Court also has the highest criminal power of sentencing an accused to death, and all other punishments can be awarded by the High Court. Sessions Court also has equal power, subject, however, in case of punishment of death, such punishment is required to be confirmed by the High Court. The first class clearly classified under CRPC, the High Court being the highest criminal court in the state, having power to sentence an accused even to death. Next in line comes the Court of Session, which can send an accused to punishment of life imprisonment and also death, subject that such death sentence is required to be confirmed by the High Court. Then comes the Chief Judicial Magistrate, has power of sentence up to 7 years. Then Judicial Magistrate first class has power to sentence up to 3 years. Then Judicial Magistrate second class, some lower thing. Therefore, what I was trying to say is, all offences can be tried by regular magistrates who are appointed under CRPC. There is no need whatsoever to appoint special courts and create this confusion. By creation of special courts, more time is wasted, not only of the courts but also of the litigants, and many new cases arise. Many cases stand pending in various courts without any progress. We have to think about it, and I would advise the legislature to abolish the special courts and allow the normal criminal courts to function. Thanks a lot.
Sir, thank you for your thought-provoking ideas and then reactions, sir. It was really great to understand the intricacies of certain statutes within the realm of criminal law. Apologies for small glitches, technical issues that we're facing with this app. Thanks once again for finding time and participating. And thank you one and all for participating in this session. We look forward to the next session, which is on Wednesday, 13th of May at 4 p.m., where senior advocates